Hi, I'm Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today I'm working on the design for the quilting on the Cats Cradle quilt. And I want to show you what I've come up with and how I'm going to transfer that onto the quilt top. And the first thing I need to do is to make a light table, and this is just a makeshift light table that I am using a glass top end table for, and I'm going to place a lamp underneath it so that the light will shine through and I can transfer my design. So I'm going to adjust the camera and show you the design work that I've done, and then get set up and show you how I'm going to transfer this design. Okay, here are all the tools that I'm working with, and I am kneeling on my bedroom floor here, so it's a little bit awkward, but it'll work. I just have large sheets of paper. What I did is these are two 9x12 sheets of paper that I just taped together. This piece here was a 10x14 sheet of paper that I drew a 10-inch square on it because the squares in the alternate blocks and the piece squares are 10 inches square. And then this is a 9x12 sheet of paper. I started out with just copy paper and just started doodling away, and I played with this for several hours over the Christmas break. And you can see there's just all kinds of doodles here. This is what I started with. And what I finally came up with was this design. This is what I chose to put in the alternate blocks, and this will set this way because the blocks are on point. Feathers will be up at the top, and then this work here will be at the bottom. The way I came up with this is, well, several years ago, I made a whole set of designs that I called filigree designs, and they were all based off of ironwork that you can find in fencing and gates and railing on stairs, that kind of thing. And this little piece is used a lot. It's like a C shape. It's used a lot in that to kind of as a connector and a spacer between other pieces of ironwork. And you will see these on aluminum type works now, because a lot of work now, instead of being ironwork, it's aluminum. Like my bed frame is aluminum, and it doesn't have this exact design in it, but it does have different types of designs similar to this in there. So I wanted this as kind of the base, and then I just started drawing the feathers off of it. So in order to get this design to look consistent from block to block, this C-shaped piece is going to have to be pretty exact from block to block and from side to side. So I drew the design on one side of my paper. I put the Sharpie marker on it, and then put it on my light box, turned it around, and then traced it again with Sharpie marker. So these sides mirror image each other. And then you can see these pieces of tape. I taped it onto my little table here, and then I traced it onto my quilt blocks using a Mark B. Gone water-soluble pen. And I did videotape all of that, but I didn't realize that my microphone was broken and it wasn't recording any audio whatsoever. So I've lost that video, so we're starting over. Today my job was to mark the setting triangles, and I wanted a design similar to this but not exactly the same. So what I came up with was this design, and you can see how we have the same feathers coming out. We have a little bit of the curly Q, but it's not the full C, and instead the feathers coming off at this point, they're just coming off down here. I thought that filled in the triangle a little bit better. And I did the same thing. I penciled in this side and then traced over it with the Sharpie, folded it in half, and then traced this side with my Sharpie marker using my light table. And here's my light table setup. My glass top table, and then I have a bare bulb and a lamp. This is, if you can see that, this is just one of those hobby lamps that, I don't know if you can get these anymore, but I bought this years ago and filled it with seashells. And I do have a shade for it, but you get more light without the shade on it when you're using it as a light box. So now I'm going to tape my design onto my table and turn on my light and then trace through it with the Mark Be Gone pen. So this just keeps it from shifting too much while I'm working, and just anything to make my job easier I'm all for it. So I'm going to get rid of my Sharpie marker before I mistake it for the Mark Be Gone pen and write on my quilt top. I'm going to show you the top as I have it so far. You can see the design I have traced on it. And this took me about 2 hours last night to trace this on 12 blocks. So now today I'm working on the setting triangles. Now this is a really good design. You can see this a little better. This is a good design for trapunto, if you're up to doing trapunto, because it fills the space a lot, so you're not going to have a lot of negative space, but you've got enough in there that you can quilt in there real densely, and it'll make your design pop. So I'm going to turn on my light table, and there you can see the design shining through. Now I went ahead on the blocks, and I went ahead and drew in all these feathers. Now the feathers, I can do these freehand. I really don't have to follow these exactly, but they're there to show me how I got this design filled, how they fit in, how many feathers I can fit in here. What's important for me is getting the curly Q design in and getting that accurate. The rest I can fill in, and that's not too much of a problem. And I know myself well enough in how I quilt that if I try and follow every line on these feathers, I'm going to tense up, I'm going to get a death grip on my machine, and these feathers are going to show it. They're not going to look relaxed. They're going to look like I was tense while I was quilting things. They won't look very good. So I will probably do these freehand. But if you're really good at following the lines, then yeah, go ahead, by all means. Do what works best for you. Here we go. This one is going to be dense because it's in good condition now that I redid the borders. And this is going to be an heirloom quilt. This is heirloom quilting that I'm doing on this. And if I was doing this for a customer, I would charge heirloom for it. Now these designs that I had mentioned earlier that I had come up with, the filigree designs I came up with years ago, I really haven't quilted them a lot in customer quilts because I do charge heirloom for that, or I did when I was in business, and customers didn't want to pay the price, so they really didn't get a lot of use. People wanted them, but they just didn't want to pay the price. So, and I normally quilt fairly densely anyway, so they were getting heavy quilting at a custom rate instead of an heirloom rate, so they were happy with what they were getting. So that's another thing you have to think about. But I would encourage you to consider the amount of time it takes you to come up with a design. Now the thing is, now that I've come up with this design, if I was in business, I could use it again on another customer quilt, and all of the initial design work is already done. Now unless you have to resize it for their quilt you know, then you're done with the design work, but you know, not all quilts are the same size. This is a 10-inch square. A lot of quilts are 12-inch blocks, so it would have to be enlarged, and you could do that with a copy machine, or you could draft it out again. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to put in all of these feathers, and this will probably take me an hour or so to get all of these triangles done. So by the time I get done with this, say I've got 8, 10 hours in the design work right now, and then whatever it takes me to do those corner triangles. Now this is a water-soluble pen. It's a Mark Be Gone, and it was a brand new pen when I started using it yesterday. So hopefully it will last through this project. If you were doing a whole cloth and you're marking it with a water-soluble pen, you're going to need several pens. So have some extras on hand. And I'm just doing this very lightly. I'm not pressing hard because I'm trying not to shift this fabric. I want it to lay fairly still. So if I press hard, you know, I'm going to move the fabric, and that's not what I'm wanting to do right now. So I'm not wanting to distort this top in any way. It's had enough of that. Okay, let me turn off the light, and there you go. There's that design. It's all ready to go, and I probably will quilt a stem through the center of this just to kind of pull everything together. If I get all of these feathers lined up perfectly, you know, I might not need to do that, but that is a possibility that I will do that. So that's how I transfer these kinds of designs onto a quilt top. And what I'm going to do in these alternate blocks is going to be more feathers. So this quilt is going to be full of feathers. I haven't decided on the borders yet. I don't know if I'll do feathers or not, because there's going to be a lot of feathers in this quilt. So I'm still thinking about that. But this is where I'm at so far on this top. Well, I have all the designs transferred onto this top, and I'll show you what I did in the corner here in just a minute. One thing I wanted to touch on was how am I going to get these marks out of the quilt when I'm done quilting. And since it's a water-soluble pen, they're going to come out with water. And I can do this a couple of ways. I could put some water in a spray bottle and spritz them. I could get a sponge and dampen it with water and wipe it over the top of the top, or I could submerge it in water, and like my bathtub. And with as much marking pen as in here, that's probably what I will do. I will fill my tub with some cool water and just put the quilt in there and swish it around a little bit, squeeze out the excess water, and then dry the quilt. And I will probably dry it in my dryer, but on a cool setting, and basically just tumble it until it's dry. I also will probably check the quilt when I take it out of the washer, or I take it out of the tub and have it, all the markings off of it, and have all the water squeezed out, and check and see if I needed to block this quilt because of as much quilting as in here. Soaking it in water will probably distort it, and it's going to need to be blocked. So that may be a possibility, and if that happens, I will video that and show you how I go about that. So I wanted to show you the corner that I came up with, and what I decided to do is to just use the feathers that are on the top of these other designs. So you can see here there is that design there. So it was just the feathers, made it a little bit more simple. There's only 4 corners on the quilt, so you know they're not going to be the main showcase of the quilt. So they match, they coordinate anyway with the rest of the designs, so I think it'll look pretty good. And I will get this quilt on the machine sometime next week. This is Friday night, so it'll probably be Monday or Tuesday before I get started on it, and I'll show you some of that process as I'm going through it. So I hope you got something out of this video, and here's the quilt as it is at the moment, and I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links, and to keep up with my newest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.